There is so much juicy stuff. We couldn't help but do a whole podcast before we started recording, but we promised to save some of it for you here. This is Heidi Hatch with KUTV 2 News for Take 2, Maura Carabello from the Exoro Group, and Greg Hughes of KNRS Radio, former House Speaker and man about town. Thanks for being here.
You know, I do think, for our listeners, you need to know that Heidi has a strict rule. She does not want us delving into these topics before we start the podcast. But sometimes, you know, there's some background and mutual information I'd like to share
for our listeners.
But it is to your credit. You want to keep all the spontaneity for the podcast.
Keeping it real, yes.
So if Greg's going to yell at me, it's got to be the first time around.
It's got to be. I know it's never as good the second time around when you can really think through your thoughts.
No, it's got to be unvarnished.
So I want to start with Utah Democrats for you. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is scheduled to speak at the Utah Democrats convention that's coming up on May 31st. I was actually a little surprised by this because Utah Democrats conventions are usually small. There's no guest speaker. It's kind of like, meh. So, Maura, are
this
Democrats
is amazing
stepping
to
it up?
me. Who knows who's stepping it up? I don't know how we got him, but congratulations to anyone who did. He's kind of hot right now for Democrats. I will say, if you want to get, I'm going to...
Like a smoke show, or he's hot because he's like ripping on Trump?
It's not a smoke show. So if you, and this includes my Republican friend here, listen to his, and cut out the partisanship, but listen to his message for a commencement speech that he gave for Northwestern University. It's terrific. It's a speech about how to identify and stay away from stupid people. And it is a really...
stupid people in general.
Yeah, and it's a tremendous speech. He is a compelling speaker. Who he reminds me of, so this might be a really bad indication for this governor, or who knows. He reminds me of an early Chris Christie. They've got that same kind of compelling, they're great storytellers. They have managed their states pretty well. Now, we know that Christie's story arc
he burned out.
hasn't necessarily gone straight up. But, yeah, J.D. Pritzker's a big name for the Dems.
Interesting.
Yeah, it would be as hard for me to take the partisanship out and listen to that speech as it would be for you to listen to President Trump's speech in the Middle East, where it's about 6 minutes, where I think the foreign policy is actually brilliant.
I've enjoyed Chris Christie. I think
you can't just enjoy him like as someone who's just like talking generalities about stupid people.
What I'm saying is that some of the things that J.B. Pritzker, Governor Pritzker, is saying nationally when he's not at a commencement is so... I think it's so strident that to be able to say, let me listen to him on the at the commencement speech, it would be like me saying, do you listen to Trump's foreign policy speech without any of the other things he said? That
taking
really
out his
as soon as he gives one, I'll listen.
I think his foreign policy.
As soon as he dials in policy at all, I'm all over it.
At Saudi Arabia was actually, I think it was historic. Really, I do. I think it was.
Okay, we're going to get to the Middle East in just a minute.
But can I ask this question?
Please.
I do think so. For the strident things that Governor Pritzker has been talking about, Governor of Illinois, do you think, Maura, that's kind of that it reflects where Utah Republicans are in the political landscape? Because he gets pretty, we're going to oppose him, we're going to fight the president, we're going to oppose it all, we're going to, I mean, it's kind of a call to arms.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the sentiment of the moment, and it's not a sentiment that I'm encouraging of. And I think you'll see it phase out a little, because if everyone doesn't see in bright neon testing of the waters for the next presidential election and a gear up to midterms where you can start floating around. I mean, this is clearly him just trotting out. That's why I suspect, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a really good staffer called Utah. This is just a primer.
And that makes sense to me, because I was going to say that where the Democrats seem to have kind of different ideas of where the party should go, and they're not really close. Pritzker's, his rhetoric seemed to match more of the more strident side. And so I thought, is that a good match for Utah? Would that be the place to come? But what you're saying is they're all going to have to chill out at some point. And so if he's coming to Utah,
now is the time to be a firebrand, right?
To tone it down and maybe
in Utah, rile him up. It's not a competitive state. He's not going to come right at a competitive time, and he has the ability to be both. He could fight. Now, whether you buy it, I don't know. But he has the ability. He's got a good enough storytelling vocabulary. He's quick enough. He could be both a firebrand and a policy guy if he can figure out that path.
My question is what Utah Democrats want at their convention, because we've seen for so long that Utah Democrats, especially when you're looking nationally, have gone hard left to Bernie Sanders instead of the Hillary Clintons of the world. So the question is, do they want to moderate? Do they want to start figuring out which direction? Do they want to be
in
left?
Utah?
Do they want to yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
Where do they want to be?
There's no point in moderating if you are if you're sort of a party faithful. I think it's a really interesting combination of there's no compelling reason to go centrist because you're still going to lose. But at the same time, if you never go centrist, will you ever have a chance of winning?
I don't know. The Ben McAdams of the world were centrist, and that's why he won, don't you think?
Right. But, I mean, we're aging on that a little bit. Traditionally, that who has won. The other thing is Trump stirs up the polarized conversations, and so you see the polarized folks from the Democrats being the responsive one. I mean, we are as polarized right now on both sides, and we're gravitating towards the issues that are making each other mad.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the dialogue you're hearing. Is it reflective? I don't know, but what we see over and over again is that moderate middle people don't compel voters. It's a fascinating.
It's the red meat.
But here's the part, and it's not the people I'm going to give as an example, because I know these two individuals I'm going to name are not. I don't even know that Utah Republicans or Utah Democrats would resonate with these two individuals, but I think their message is one that would resonate stronger in the state of Utah, and that is Bill Maher and James Carville. I think both of them are trying to tell their party that they haven't changed. They've been the liberal left of center voices, but the party's gone far beyond them, and it's going to a place where they don't think that America is going to join them. And and their message really is, you've gone way. I mean, Bill Maher said, "Stop listening to your kids." It's not what they're saying is really alienating this country. And James Carville has a different way of saying that. But honestly, I think what their message is one that Utah, at least I don't know every Utah Democrat. I'm just thinking of the colleagues I served with in the House, and I think of what their temperament was or what they would argue for. And it sounds closer to what a Bill Maher would say or James Carville, not a Dave Hogg, the young kid.
Well, so you're making a really good point, is that I should have started with this. Utah Democrats and those who are elected in Utah are actually by and large pragmatist.
Yes.
They by and large reflect the majority of Utahns. I'm not saying they cover them completely, but a constant frustration of Utah Democrats is the fact that they by and large reflect almost every constituency here, but they get tainted, if you will. I mean, how do you kill a Democrat? Are things like, oh, you'd support Nancy Pelosi, even though there's no relationship between House District X and Nancy Pelosi's federal seat. So, and I know she's gone, but like, I just think I was speaking more in terms of matching up on a presidential race. Utah Democrats and those who get elected in Utah, I would argue, listen and follow their constituents almost more than the Republicans do, because in some ways the Republicans have some leeway to not do that, where Utah Democrats, I think, are pretty in tune with most folks, meaning they're moderate. And over again, you see fiscal conservatism being led here by, or being joined here by the Democrats.
That's the interesting dynamic I see for Utah, because when the AOCs or Bernies come and you have 5,000 or however many came to the University of Utah, I think there's some young people that want to get engaged, and I think they see the Democrats that you just described as not good enough. They want to be more strident. They have issues that they think the moderation's not serving them well. And I think that has existed, and I remember it in 2016, it being a factor. But I think it's growing inside the Democrat Party in terms of these voices. And one of the things I think is that the billionaires that really fund these races, I think they're on the side of the young kids. I think they're actually really looking at some of these more, I would call them extreme, but they're more of those strident issues than the Bill Maher, James Carville types are used to advocating for.
Well, we've talked about this already, but on the flip side, the Utah GOP has a choice coming up at their convention. They have to figure out if they're going to go a little more centrist or if they're going to go to the right. There are some new numbers out from a delegate poll. I don't have the full poll in hand. Just saw one media report. We're hoping to get those numbers. But this was done by backers of Count My Vote. Apparently, they sent out a poll to almost 4,000 of the delegates. They had 400 respond. And right now they're showing that 59% will vote for Rob Axson, who's currently the chair. 39.7% for Phil Lyman, and then another 1% were undecided. Maura, when you only get 400, is this going to reflect the delegates or the Phil Lyman ones just not voting because they would rather stick it to the man and not answer a text?
I mean, what shows here is what rings true to me is if you're a delegate, you have an opinion. So the 1.2% makes sense to me. 10% of the total, no one's going to say it's statistically sound to declare a winner. It seems to reflect the momentum of the communications this last week. I mean, Axum has had a really good communications week, and you do see Phil Lyman taking a defensive position. What's interesting about Phil Lyman is that's where he always is. Yeah. But so it's hard to tell whether that's on purpose or not, but it does feel like he's in a defensive position, which I don't think is where I would want to be going.
What are your Republican friends saying? Are they leaning Phil Lyman, or are they going to stick with...
I have friends that are doing both, that are supporting Phil Lyman passionately and cannot even imagine why anyone would vote otherwise. And I have people that are supporting Rob. I'll just totally balls and strikes without putting my thumb on the scale at all. Here's Rob Axon's challenge to me, and that is he was a very successful fundraiser, raised I think as much or more than many chairs in the past have. But you take that, and what you're supposed to do with that is party build. You're supposed to do the job of the chair really, really well. I would argue that our caucus night was one of the most grandest failures of a caucus night we've ever had.
Give me a primary, people.
And then the convention lasting till after midnight would be a record, also a bad record in terms of not a well-run convention at all. And so on the competency level, he has to answer those questions of what good is it to raise money if we can't have some of the basic grassroots party building apparatus of a party function, successfully. What Phil Lyman has to answer is there is no party without the three-ring circus, and the three-ring circus is one ring are your grassroots, and those are the delegates, and they're the people that help make the party what it is. But you also have a donor class, people that donate to the party because it takes money, it takes resources to build and do those things. And then you have your elected Republicans, who are the standard bearer in public service. So you have grassroots, and you have donors, and you have public servants that are Republican. Does Phil Lyman have the ability, as the chair, to operate in those three circles? That's the question he has to answer to. I think a lot of delegates' satisfaction, because they know that just having one without the other two inherently makes the party weak. Rob Axon's challenge is, you seem to be able to mix and mingle in these three circles, but to what end?
Can money buy me a short convention?
Man, I'm going to be there Saturday. No. I'm hoping.
And the nicer the weather, the longer the convention, I've noticed.
Well, the good news is I think it's
when it's a beautiful day out.
Yeah, it's
I feel like conventions go on and on.
We should go faster then, so we can get outside.
Yes, that's the point. Like I don't get the opposite.
I'm going to be there. I hope it's not.
What time are you getting there?
I got to get there early, but yeah, I'm going to be there early. But I'm hoping it's not.
Are you broadcasting from it, or you're just going there to?
No,
okay.
Could you text me what's going on while I'm outside enjoying?
Do you really want to know what's going on there?
Yeah.
You're just rubbing it in.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. We'll watch closely what happens there. I did notice in the debate between Rob Axon and Phil Lyman, when he sits down and has a conversation, sounds a lot more reasonable than Phil Lyman when he's on X or posting on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of two different human beings. We'll see.
That was kind of who he was in the legislature too.
Yeah, that's right.
His sound bites were horrible, but when you actually spoke to him,
and I didn't get to serve with Phil when I was in the legislature, but he was the San Juan County commissioner, and I found him to be very. In fact, even reaching across the aisle with Democrat county commissioners, he would work with them, and so it is. I think there's the Phil Lyman you would speak with and interact with is different than the maybe the advertised version.
Who knows who the Phil Lyman party chair would be?
All right, we've got a few things we're going to go through fairly quickly just because people are on social media, so we know you're talking about them. James Comey, the former director of the FBI, has been posting on Instagram photos of himself sitting in jeans on the beach reading his own book. So anyhow, he's getting ready to release a book. He's getting ready to get people to pay attention, and he got people to pay attention by picturing some sand, some really nice sand, with the number 8647. He says on Instagram, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Did he know what he was doing? Was this to get attention for his book, Or is he calling for something bad to happen to number 47? We're assuming the president, 86, depending on who you talk to, means Nix, you're getting kicked out of the bar. Or if you look on Wikipedia, 86, the term, according to Cassell's Dictionary of Slang, to 86 means to kill, to murder, to execute judiciously or judicially. So anyhow, did he know what he was doing? Did someone else leave this shell art on the beach and he just took a picture of it? What happened,
That's what
Greg?
he said. So he took the post down and he said, I came across this innocently, this shell formation that had the number 86 and the number 47. And I didn't know what 86 meant. This is his post when he took it down, his explanation. I didn't know what it meant, but it seemed to me to be a political statement, and so I reposted it. And I regret that if it means anything violent, I didn't mean it to mean that. I don't support any kind of violence. I don't think you walk across the shore or a beach and you just find shells that are made into an number 86 and a number 47. I don't think you randomly find that. I think you make that, and I think that he knew exactly that minimally that means get rid of Trump. I mean, 86, if you're gonna 86 something, I looked at it. I didn't know it right away. A lot of people did and thought I was crazy that I didn't, but minimally it means get rid of. Worse, it means 8 miles out of town and 6 feet under is a gangster term of killing someone. So there's different versions of what 86 means, but at its best interpretation, it means get rid of. So if you find get rid of Trump,
so is this a moment where you're like, this was stupid, why did you do it? Or should he be investigated and locked up by his friends at the FBI?
I think that I think for somebody who has had a lot to say about political violence and about these things, for him to have our president have 2 assassination attempts on his life, I think we would tread a little lighter. I think it's a stunt on his part. I think it's a poor choice of a stunt. I think he lies when he says he just came across it because he got us
talking about it.
Well, and the reason he wants that is he has a new book of fiction that's coming out, and it's called FDR Drive, and it's within an hour of him posting that, he posts all about his book. And what is his book about? It's about a conservative right-wing podcaster who says that some political figure, there's something ought to be done about them, and that person ends up being murdered. And the book is about going after and trying criminally the podcaster for having said that. I see too much similarity in terms of him having what could be interpreted as a violent interpretation to 8647, and then in his next post or within an hour, heralding his new book that's coming out that he'd like to make a lot of money selling. I think I just think he's crazy. I do. I think he's lost his bearings. He's lost his mind. It's minimally in poor taste, if not worse. And I do believe it's related to this book that's coming out that he'd like a lot of people to know about and to buy.
Much ado about nothing, or is this a man who knows better because he spoke out against Trump for saying and doing things that seem along these lines?
Yeah, I mean, he knows better. He did apologize for whether that's believable or not. It's another symptom of our world right now, and it's another misuse of political conversations and hyping up on social media. I mean, I'm taking more and more the position of get off of social media. Like this didn't put him. I'm not a hater of James Comey, but no, that's not okay. None of this. No. At best, it's a bad, poorly done PR move.
Yes.
And you want to be the guy that is celebrating that on the beach, like that's the format in which you want to critique the current president of the United States. Yeah. It's not someone withstanding, but I say that to all of our folks on social media saying, rise up a little bit. So it was stupid.
Yeah.
It's not prosecutable, to be clear. I mean, it's just not. It's speech.
Yeah.
He didn't do it. It's not. And so it's not anything to be investigated. And if you did that, you're also playing in the drum up game.
He knows it and he knows better.
It just was dumb. It's not worthy of him. It's not worthy of anyone, of any former cabinet member from any administration. It's not worthy of you.
And the unfortunate part about it is, and it's a good advice to stay off social media, is that people that really, really can't stand Trump loved it. So then you have the posts that come out that show the pool balls that say 86-47, and people are saying, yeah, let's take him out. Let's do. And if there's not an election to remove him from office or an impeachment, what does it actually mean?
I think it's different for a dude in a bar to post that than the former FBI director. So let's all just grow up. And speaking of growing up, this one drove me nuts yesterday. It got a ton of play. We talked to Blake Moore, our congressman, if you've seen this video. But he took a small nap when he was supposed to be voting on Trump's big, beautiful bill. I saw both Republicans and Democrats tweeting the video, and it's like, this is not my representative, or like, get rid of him, what a moron. And I'm like, okay, let's all take a step back and be human for a moment. Let's take out the politics. They had an all-nighter. It was a meeting that started at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They were voting at like 4:45 in the morning. Maura, should we be mad that he didn't have enough Red Bull to have enough respect for this vote? Or is he just a human who like just couldn't pull the all-nighter?
He handled this so well. He deserves a round of applause for what he's doing on Ways and Means. And we'll just get personal with him for a second. He works really hard. You may hate what he's working on, but the guy works really hard. He's got a young family. His wife responded really funny. I'm paraphrasing her, but she essentially said, he falls asleep on Sunday too.
At church,
they took it in stride, which is what they should have done. He pointed out that he made the mistake of not sleeping on the back row like the rest of the people. If you haven't seen the video, the best part of it is when he takes a bow at the end.
Yes.
And this is just, again, delete all the causticness. This was a person who had been up all night working on behalf of, whether you like what they're doing or not, they are by and large working hard. And we've got to stop it already. I will say, it was unfortunate because it was a great camera angle. It was like,
and the camera was slowly panning.
You have to be asleep.
He was out.
Mr.
It was
Moore.
It was funny.
They're saying his
He
name
woke
pretty loud.
up
It's not like
classy, though. I
he
would have
was
been
out.
drooling, and you know how sometimes you get startled awake,
Yeah.
and you just kind of jump, and your face probably looks like I don't know what. So he was like a cute.
He was a great sleeper.
Yeah.
And the woman next to him, who is also a Republican representative, bless her heart, you can see her giving him a minute to wake up on his own. And then she's finally like, I gotta slap him. But great job, Representative Moore. I think you're working hard, and I think this is
So what's so funny about this for me is that when
Your
I
Republican friends are mad at him too because they're just saying that he's garbage and
so when I
needs to get
saw
out.
this, I wake up in the morning, I'm looking at the news, and I'm seeing these images of people, members of Congress, and I see an early morning committee meeting, sound asleep, and I'm like, is this like college where you've had an all-night binger and you can't make the early morning class, so you can't even keep your eyes open? I'm thinking, what are these people doing at night that they can't be awake for an early morning committee? This is absolutely ridiculous. And then I find out they started this thing at 2 o'clock. They went through the night to 5 a.m. But then I'm thinking to myself, they took half the month of April off. Can they pace themselves? Can we just have 5 days a week, 9 to 5? Just, can you be there for 4 weeks? Not have a meeting from 2 o'clock to 5 a.m., but just kind of have it under normal working circumstances. I think he handled it well. I have no problem with a guy that's trying, anyone on that committee that was on a committee from 2 p.m. to 5 a.m. trying to stay awake the entire time. I understand why that's difficult. What blows my mind about Congress is that they have a 2 p.m. to 5 a.m. Meeting at all. I just don't even understand the logic in that. I don't even know what anyone's mind where it can be
it's midnight,
for a
let's
vote
all go,
at 5
sit for a
a.m.
few hours and come back at 6 in the morning.
It's mismanagement once again.
It is. I just can't. I just look at that and it's not the typical criticism of, oh, they're asleep. It's once I realized that how long and marathon type that committee was, I know why. I understand why they fell asleep. I still don't understand why you have a 2 p.m. to 5 a.m. meeting.
I mean,
no one's worth anything.
An incredibly valuable lesson about where the 2 fixed cameras are on C-SPAN.
Now
right?
you know.
Yes,
now you know.
A little secret. I used to try, when we used to have negotiations, House and Senate, on the budget, I used to try to push that to midnight towards the end of the session because I knew that the senators would agree. Just because they're so tired. They're just so tired. They're so tired of me.
What I learned from this, though, is on social media, people just love being angry about something. And I'm like, do we not have a moment where sometimes in humanity
this
you
was
can
just
be like,
so innocent. Yeah, this was not.
I don't even think
it's just dumb. Unless I'm being
funny.
chased by a tiger or there's really loud clubby music and a whole lot of caffeine, I'm going to be down on the floor, let alone asleep in my chair at that point. So I don't know.
I just don't see the sense in a committee hearing going till 5 a.m. I don't even know who's in their right mind to vote at 5 a.m.
Yeah, no thanks. Speaking of what's happening in Congress, John Curtis, this surprised me. He has been our Utah State Senator since January. He finally made his first floor speech, so good for him. But I'm like, how did we get to May 14th, and it was finally his first speech. Is that normal, Maura?
They're slow. President Trump has signed less legislation than any modern president. Congress isn't pumping out very much right now. They're telling you that they're busy about the business of preparing a budget, and they're telling you that's why they're not producing so much. Now, I think you should be able to walk and chew gum and be able to balance a budget and actually pass things. I will say, John Curtis is one of the most prolific and successful legislators our federal delegation has come for a while. He crushed it in the House. So I'm sure he got his bearings. I also just want to give credit to whoever does his pre-press. We have been teasing out this speech.
Yeah, we have.
As though it is the State of the Union. And I mean, like, whoever's doing his hype squad, a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Like,
it was fine. I mean, it wasn't fine. Like anything interesting, but I was like, oh, good.
Name a speech we've listened to. We don't listen to speeches. And I am like, oh, I'm dialing it in like it's the Supreme Court argument. So whoever's on his hype squad, it's a good job.
High five, yeah.
It goes back to this lack of production. They take 2 weeks off in the middle of April. If you saw how many work days are happening right now, it's not acceptable. I just don't think it's acceptable what the pace that they have right now, and it's frustrating. And they had some trouble earlier in the year, or I guess in March, and they just adjourned for the rest of the month.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're actually using it as work time with their constituents in the district, which is obviously what it's scheduled to be. So hopefully they're using it that way. But yeah, I hope they have stacks of paper and they're reading at home. Whether they are or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the work. Some of these aren't the planned recesses either. I think they're recessing early, and because they don't have votes, it's such a thin majority with the Republicans. But I just think they should just sequester themselves in that damn town until they get something done and quit coming home and quitting for a couple weeks. I just think they need to work more. And that's happening after we just said that they work from 2 p.m. to 5 a.m., which I guess means they work hard. I just don't know that that's working smart.
Yeah, I don't know that those nursing
I just would like, again, I go back to, can you pace yourself, work 5 days a week, and just get some stuff done for the full month and not do a 2 p.m. to 5 a.m. meeting?
All right, speaking of working some overtime, Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs announced yesterday that he is joining the Trump administration. He is doing it full-time. He'll be working as the regional advocate for Utah Small Business Administration. His district will be Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. I spoke to him on the phone yesterday for a few minutes, nothing super in-depth about questions people have about tariffs and small businesses and how they're affected. I was mostly asking him about what he's doing, if he'll stay on as mayor. Yes, he'll stay on as mayor. He's a part-time mayor in Riverton, so that means he's got 2 city council meetings a month. He still for sure has to be there for the city's business, but he's going to do that as a side hustle while also running this new office. He's going to do it from the federal building in Salt Lake City, so he has talked the administration in not moving to Denver. That's normally where this post would be in Colorado. So he is here, and he's going to be doing it. Is this a good place for Staggs?
Yeah, he was. Trump supported him, and I think that
backed him for his U.S. Senate run.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that this is a great place for anyone. I think working in the Small Business Administration, if you can help small businesses and you can help deal with the regulations or cut the regulatory largesse that we tend to have, and you can help with the loans that come with that. I think that's an exciting job, and I congratulate him for getting the appointment.
Should he give up the mayorship and let someone else, or does he have the ability and right to do so until January?
If you were elected, well, yeah, it's hard. I'm not sure. I know that we have government employees that serve part-time on city councils and as mayors, so I think it's probably consistent with that. So I don't think he would need to. And it would just be a question of workload, and if doing that job would interrupt with his duties as mayor.
Yeah. Is this a good place for him?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think one of the things that's striking about this is how bright red we are and how much tush kissing we've done for the Trump administration. And very few Utahns have landed positions in the Trump administration.
This is true.
And so good for Mayor Staggs, who landed a yes for a Senate race really early. So I don't know who his connections or where his connections are, but I would expect that one of the benefits of being bright red, you still have folks from other generations of Republican White Houses who trained a lot of Utahns at one point. And we have not seen that as much as I would have expected with the Trump administration. It's been very hard for Utahns, for whatever reason, to land positions. So congratulations. And I'm with Greg. I'm mixed. Part of me always wants to say, no, only do one job at once. But I will say Mayor Staggs is a seasoned mayor, so he knows what it takes to run his city. And it is a part-time position, and I think he's dedicated. So I would say I'm going to trust his judgment on him doing both.
Yeah, so he's going to be doing a little OT, and hopefully we can talk to him and sit down with him. I think he is going to be fairly busy for a while. He said there's 1 week out of every month he has to go to one of those other states to drop in, talk to businesses, work with them. I'll be interested to see what they can accomplish, because I think one of the big things that Trump's talked about beyond tariffs is getting rid of regulation. And I know when you talk to a lot of small business owners, they say that one of the biggest things for a small business owner is trying to afford attorneys or whatever it is to know how to run a business. You know this, Maura, you run a business, so there's a lot of regulation. Do you feel like if it were pared back, it would make your life easier?
I think the Trump administration is going to be really hard on small business, because I think tariffs are, and I think how he's going to lay out the taxes are going to be really hard. So it's going to be an interesting position to still defend your guy and to back him and have to deal with mom and pop shops. I think that's going to be a tough position.
Yeah, I think that the SBA loans and some of the things that the Small Business Administration offers, I think those are the challenges that you have to get. It's not any good if no one knows about it. And so I think Mayor Staggs' greatest challenge or opportunity is to let more people understand what opportunities are out there, what they can do for their business. As far as Trump's policies for small business, as long as we keep the tax cuts that were made in 2017 coming through, those are payroll taxes. There are a lot of taxes that cross the board. It's not all for the wealthy, as it's been said. I hope those it's the weirdest thing. If I was in the state legislature and we cut taxes back in 17, we wouldn't be talking about cutting taxes by leaving the tax rate we made in 17 the same today. It's the weirdest thing. It's not a tax cut. It's a tax increase if you don't just hold serve and leave taxes alone. So you don't have to pay for that, like they like to say, well, how do we pay for it? We're not cutting. We're just saying you're not going to add more taxes. And so I see that. The only additions I've heard is no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. All of those things I think won't hurt individuals or businesses, small businesses. I think those are all, I love all those ideas.
I think it's going to be products. I think it's going to be the cost of inventory, the destabilizing of the economy, that small shops just don't have the lead to survive for very long, and we saw that in COVID, and that's just the destabilization. It's not even a fixed. And I do think they're slimming down services available, and I think it's going to be harder to get a hold of federal offices to service even granting funds that you have. I think we've really cut down on FTEs for the federal government, which means fewer services.
Yeah, those were all no-show jobs. They weren't even available on the other line anyway.
Yeah.
We will see.
But no, but to your point, Axios just put out a story that said that they would have expected to see some of these economic recoils already, but consumer spending went up in April. It was stagnant in March. They're seeing more of a cut in margins, not in raised prices. But you do have Walmart that sent out a big old notice that their prices are going to go up. So we'll see. There's deals coming right now with tariffs with individual countries. That's happening very quickly. So the stock market seems to have rebounded from its recoil.
Yeah, S&P 500's fully recovered.
But the bond market is the indicator of long term, right?
Yeah.
Not stocks. Stocks are cheap and easy money. Bonding is where we're going, and the bond market is flashing red right now.
Yeah.
But our stock market does help signal,
Day to day.
Well, it's the what's the word? Consumer attitudes, or if it's falling, people
levels.
Get worried.
Yeah.
If it's rebounding, people feel, and I think consumer confidence has a lot to do, even with perception on economic factors.
Yeah.
So I think those are good things.
If you're an egg eater, eggs are going down. I think they're $5.12 on average across the country for a dozen right now.
Yeah,
I remember
gas is supposed to go down. I'm so tired of hearing that. We got a refinery, got a capacity problem here. Everybody's bragging about their $2 something a gallon gas. We're nowhere near that. I don't know when we get that kind of price on gas.
Utah's
always
higher
been high.
or lower than
It's
other
driving
people.
me nuts.
It's a bargain compared to what my kids are paying, though, in California, though. Every time I hear how much it costs to fill up a tank there, I'm like, ugh.
My fear is that they're tearing down their refineries in California. They're going to come here to our refineries to buy our gasoline, and that's not going to let our prices go down because California will pay through the nose for that that gasoline.
We'll see how that goes. Hey, before we get to Trump in the Middle East, I wanted to mention real quick that Representative Jefferson Moss is stepping down, so there'll be a special election for his seat. He's moving to a new role as Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Good spot for him.
Yeah.
I think he wants it. One thing I'll say, since I gave Mayor Staggs a pass, this is not directed specifically at Representative Moss, but I am a little tired of having 2 and 3 jobs. So he has a job right now at USHE at the Office of Higher Education. My rumor has it that he's not giving up the USHE job to take the GOEO job.
What?
And I think you have to. I think you can only have one job that we're funding.
Yeah, that's
and
that's
so
double dipping.
that's the rumor. I hope it's not
Yeah, I
true,
haven't heard that,
Representative.
but I don't
I think
know
you
that
should
would
just
work.
go to GOEO and do your thing there. It's a governor's appointed job. I think what's more interesting about this is it frees up a special election for the 61 members of the House caucus who are Republicans, who he's the majority leader. So will it be a normal step up in line? Will it be that a couple people are in office are going to jump in?
Dog fight.
Remember, when it's a caucus fight, you can't keep your current position and go for another. So you have to give
have to
up your
release
current
it.
position. And so because of the amount of sway and suck that the House of Representatives has right now, that election is as interesting probably as his House seat is to me. And
More so.
yeah.
Sway and suck. Put that on a T-shirt.
There
you
That's
go.
good.
So the majority leader, the House has 4 elected. You have the Speaker of the House, you have your majority leader, your whip, and your assistant whip. And the Speaker's he's not leaving his seat. He's not going anywhere. So that's not a race. Majority leader's an open seat. I've heard that the whip and assistant whip are interested in potentially both running for the majority leader's spot, which would mean they would both vacate their respective positions.
So
as
those are
whip
2
and
new
assistant whip.
people.
So, if it is true that they're both going to pursue the majority leader race, only one of them can win, and they don't have a fallback in their old spot. That means that the whip and assistant whip leadership races are potentially open seats, which could draw. I think it will draw a number of House members, Republicans that want to run for those seats, and then we'll see how that rolls out. But that means that you're going to have of the 4, you'll have 2 brand new.
Yeah.
All right.
You'll have lost one, and
One will move up.
one will leave.
Yeah.
And then 2
Right.
more will come in their place. So
Yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting.
that's a real shakeup of a House leadership team in a midterm.
We'll see what
If
happens.
I was Speaker, I don't know that I'd be super excited about that kind of tumult.
We'll have
in
the
middle of-
speaker in here on the 28th, I think. I've got to look at my calendar, but in a couple of weeks. So we'll ask him about that, see if it's fun for him.
Maybe it'll be
No,
done
they-
by then.
No, they're doing it at the beginning of June, I think.
Are they?
Oh, they are?
So,
Okay.
So he'll be able to give you maybe a good synopsis.
A
And if
read on
And
that.
I think as a good speaker, I remember when I had inside my own leadership team, but this was during elections. So there were elections and re-elections, and then everybody runs for their leadership spot again. There was some differences of opinion within my leadership team when I was speaker, and I just went, I let them. If you want to go out in the backyard and duke it out, go do it. And I was not putting my thumb on the scale in any way, shape, or form. I had my opinions I wasn't shy about, but I didn't try to influence that process at all.
And remember, the
I let
whole
it move
body
out.
at one point has a chance to weigh in on who their speaker
Yeah.
is. And to the credit of Utah Democrats, they have tended to affirm
That's
the
right.
Republicans. And we've had mostly unanimous votes. But contrarily with your party leadership, it is only the ones in the caucus. So it gets really small really fast. Those 61 people, and 3 of them in this instance, because the speaker's holding his, that gets kind of intense.
A little high school cafeteria fights. All right.
It'll be good. But I think that it empowers a caucus to decide who they want for their leaders. And I think any candidate that's running for any of those spots really has to come to their caucus as a servant leader. Truly, this isn't Pollyanna. I really think that leaders within the House have to show how they're going to help their colleagues be more successful in representing their districts. It's really what you're there for. And so having every one of those that are interested in running, being in the districts of their colleagues, learning where they work or where they live, hearing their concerns or what they see in the caucus that they'd like to see differently or what they appreciate, it's good for all of those members of the House that want to run to go through that exercise. I wouldn't want to do it in the middle of a term. I don't like that. I mean, that part wouldn't be my favorite, but the current speaker didn't get to pick that, so
yeah,
it is what it is. But I think it'll be healthy for the House caucus to go through that exercise.
All right. An exercise we're watching right now is President Trump is touring the Middle East. A lot of these countries really rolling out the red carpet for him. Dancers, camels, the Burj Khalifa lit up in red, white, and blue. Maura, I think a lot of people are talking online saying, the president should not be giving a voice to some of these leaders. This is the wrong idea. Others are saying anytime there's a leader who will sit down and have a conversation, it's a conversation that should be had. What's your idea when you look at it?
This is very not traditionally the image that America has put out. And so am I sort of recoiling because it's novel, it's new, it's not how we usually do things? Or am I struggling? And I don't love his image. I feel like he's very Chamber of Commerce-y, and that is not what I see as a presidential look and feel. So there's a personal style issue that I continue to struggle with Trump. I don't think reflecting and highlighting, he sort of, because it's show, you're getting a larger show. And I like it when our foreign policy is a little tighter, a little uptight, frankly. That's a comfort zone for me. There's official gatherings. He is a flashy guy and always has been. I mean, it's what he sold, so it's not like we didn't know this was coming. But it's not a style I'm comfortable with for the leader of what I would like to still see as the free world. I think for me, it's a little too reality TV show flashy. It shows a lot of symbols that don't relate to me. So I am pushing back against that whole packaging of America that way. I will say he's going to make some economic deals. He's focused on that. This is his forte. I don't agree with all of them. I think that we don't have to deep dive on this, but I think that the airplane is a train wreck.
Let's talk about
America can afford its own, and
Qatar, however you'd like to say it.
By the time they take it apart to make sure it's not bugged, it will cost the same amount as if we just do it. And frankly, I am so American that I would just like us to buy our own Air Force One.
It is an American Boeing 747.
No, but it's a gift from a foreign country.
So
do we trust our own? That's a question I have. Let's say we buy a plane straight from Boeing and it didn't come through another country that we don't know if we can trust. Can you always trust Boeing, or do they take it apart anyways too? Because there's always somebody who could be spying.
I think Air Force One is built to be Air Force One.
So the way I understand it is, and I didn't learn this till today, and I heard this from what's his name, the Oklahoma Republican Senator Mark Wayne. What's his last name? I can't remember. He's on Jake Tapper's CNN show, and what he described, and he said a lot of people don't know this. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that people don't know. We used to have two Air Force Ones. The one of them, they're both old. The one that Trump currently uses is 40 years old. The second one had structural issues, and so they grounded it to not be able to use it. So they had just one. They have been on order. I think the new Air Force One's been on order for 10 years. It's behind schedule, and it's not arrived yet.
How long does it take to build a plane?
Well, that's the question. But what this is seen as is the negotiations for this offer to have this 747, this Boeing plane from Qatar, started a year ago during the Biden administration for the practical purpose of they have just one Air Force One right now. So I didn't know up until today that this was a discussion that started during the Biden administration about having this plane gifted. It would be turned over to the Air Force, the military. It will never be owned by him personally. It would be done so that it didn't have bugs in it, and it would be safe to be Air Force One. But I've understood this not to be the official replacement, but what they're using to have two until the one that's been ordered 10 years ago is done and is ready to be delivered. And so I don't have a big problem with it. And I think that the focus on that versus what I would like to talk about in this Mideast trip is that I absolutely loved his speech about commerce. You said Chamber of Commerce. He literally used the word commerce, and I say in a positive way. Instead of the Middle East being chaos, he does not want chaos. He wants commerce. He wants mutual interests, economic interests between the United States and other countries. In his first term, they had the Abraham Accords, which normalized relationships with Arab states with Israel. Israel would be able to fly its planes in the airspace of these Arab states. I think there's three countries,
and they're getting
three
Syria
or four
now at the table for the Abraham Accords as well.
So one of the things that was a great accomplishment that didn't get a lot of attention in his first term. One of the things he's doing in this trip is he's encouraging the other countries, Saudi Arabia, others, to join the Abraham Accords and normalizing the relationships with Israel. The chaos, the commerce over chaos. He also talks about nation builders, and he talks about the neocons and nation builders in the United States in the past who've attempted, like Baghdad is one of his examples, to try and tear down and build up nations that would look like the United States. He says, I'm not interested in changing your culture. I'm not interested in building your nation. I don't like war. I don't want war. We want to work together. We want to find things that we work together. We want to have prosperous countries with prosperous people. I think those are very positive messages. But at the same time he's saying that, his next breath, he says, I want Iran. I want the people of Iran to be prosperous. I want their country to be prosperous. They will not have a nuclear bomb. They won't. And we're not going to allow it. It is a dove, or it's a gesture of friendship and wanting to get along in one hand, but it's a sword in the other. And because it's Trump, he uniquely can, and I think he's authentic, mean both. What I think that does is that boxes out an Iran from those other Arab states. It boxes out potentially a China from those other states, because they are listening to how he doesn't want to change their culture. He doesn't want to change. They don't have to look like America. He wants them to be, and he says, I hate war. I don't want war. We want our countries to be successful. I think it's more than a show. I think there's something real going on here, and I think the reception he's received from the Middle East, a place that's been tumultuous at best, and worse, it's been nothing but a war zone and an ashtray for my whole life, to have those moments, I think they're historic. I think they're worth paying attention to, and I wish we saw more attention to the Abraham Accords and these deals. These financial deals, why I think they're important is they align the interests of the United States with those countries, and now you have mutual interests, which does, for purposes of defense or whatever it may be, you now have interests that are overlapping, and I think that's probably your best diplomatic tool, not coming in and immediately demonizing the other side. And I've changed. I mean, Bush called the axis of evil right out the gate. You know, it was North Korea and it was Iran, and who was the third, the axis of evil. Anyway, that's the old way. I like the way he's approaching this through mutual benefit to all their countries and their economies.
I really appreciate what Greg said, and if that's what Trump delivers, good for him. But let us be clear. Trump proclaims things that have not happened. So I'm going to wait and see what happens, because he is a hype guy, and I think he's a snake oil salesman. So I want to see results. I appreciate the pretty that he paints and the words that he uses, but I have yet to see him have major long-term success with his foreign policy or his domestic policy. So I'm going to wait and see on that.
Okay. Here's something that before he went on his trip, and also we'll talk about this next week, but I believe there's a meeting supposed to be happening in Turkey where Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is supposed to be meeting with Ukraine, and Russian leaders, maybe Putin. I don't know if he's RSVP'd, so we'll see how that goes. But before he went on this Middle East trip, he made another executive order that the question is, can he make this executive order and can anything happen? He wants to make sure that drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, charge the same here in the U.S. for a drug as you would pay in Mexico or in London or wherever you're at, that the prices would be the same. Is this something the president should do? Is this something Congress should do? And is this an important conversation?
Well, I mean, almost everything is something Congress should do and isn't. So, I mean, that's probably the start of a lot of policy. I'm tired of the executive orders, and that applies to Biden too. I think just because the other guy does it doesn't mean you do it. But I will say about this most favored nation, it's not the first go around for our president to declare this. This is actually some pretty old policy. This isn't new policy. Yeah. What it does is it gets us on a buy list for competitive pricing. The problem with that is one of the big reasons that America pays more for drugs is because we have a free market system. So we have competitive supply and demand here, where most others consolidate their buying power, buy better. The other thing is they're going to tax our incoming drugs. So we're going to get the cheaper, the ones that used to be cheaper, but now they're going to have a tax attached to it. Do I mind it as a conceptual policy? No. I think both. If anyone says this is a partisan issue, it's not. Both have taken cuts at this. Do I think it'll make a big difference in our pricing? our prices? No, because unless we do some housekeeping of our own, and I agree with Trump's rhetoric on this, until we look at our pharmaceuticals, and I know they're investing money in their trials, but until we try and do a better job with transparency in
Their
our system.
profits are
Our system is
insane,
broken.
though. Yeah.
So I mean this is really a good executive order because it doesn't say much. It says a whole lot of value-based stuff, and one of the things that that you're hearing from those regulators are saying there's not much there. In the body of it, it sort of says we'll work a lot out later. So I don't mind the concept. I don't think it's going to matter
Hopefully
much.
it starts the conversation. Oddly enough, this is one of those horseshoe issues, as they call it, where the right and left meet. Because you see Bernie Sanders
right.
and Trump on either end,
sure.
who are pretty close on this policy of where they stand.
So this actually is. So I've had my worldview has changed a lot, and especially and it started
You
really
woke up
with
a Democrat today wearing blue?
with the Trump administration, where I realized you could have a strong defense but not be engaged in every war around the world. I've learned a lot, or I've just changed. I think circumstances changed as well. I don't think the world looks exactly as it did in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. I believe, probably naively, that when we talked about our philosophy that we keep tariffs low, we are not protectionists, I believe that was a two-way street. I wasn't aware that countries would all protect themselves with tariffs, and the only ones that would ever not have tariffs would be, or have the lowest tariffs, would be the United States. Just like the prescription drugs. I thought you never want to price control. You never want to say what that price will be because you need the free market to do it. Until I learned that every country has price controls but us. So that means that 4% of the world's population is paying 75+% of the revenue that pharmaceutical companies are receiving. That wasn't the deal. My deal isn't that we hate tariffs and you tariff. We hate price controls. You guys price control everything. And the American people pay all the difference because you've benefited from the barriers you've created, and we are the ones that are swearing by a free market that's not so free and not so fair. What I want to see is if the stats show that by per capita, Americans are paying over $1,000 for prescription drugs a year. People in developed countries, not Africa or somewhere where I would imagine if you're a third world country, I would understand why you can't pay the going rate. But if UK citizens are paying $240 a year, while we're paying over $1,000 a year, I don't know why that's the case. And I actually think the most favored nation status to these countries saying, we're all going to pay the same, and if pharmaceutical companies can't afford it, that means they can't afford it for you either. So you're going to have to be adjusting your your so-called price control. If they're paying more for pharmaceuticals so that we're not paying all or the lion's share of the revenue to pharmaceutical companies, I like that approach. And what I'm hoping happens here is Germany, UK, all these people that have been getting drugs for next to nothing, while we've been paying I would argue, our rate plus the consequence of their price control, we start to see that equal out. We see the equilibrium happen with these other developed nations. I don't know the argument why they should be able to price control and demand pharmaceuticals at an artificially low price while we condemn price control, but we pay all the difference.
It's due to our system. It's not due to the global economy of it. So I agree.
Yeah.
I don't mind
But I
this
think
move.
that's where he's trying to
but
get
this
it
move
more
doesn't
global.
solve.
No.
I think it could if those countries
No,
lower
because they
their
won't. What they'll do is raise it because it's the same pharmaceutical company. And so they're not going to say, oh, gosh, you caught us. The other thing is there's no bite in this at all.
No.
There's no way to regulate it. There's no way to follow up on a threat.
What I think
so
it does is
they're
open
going
to
to say,
conversation.
oh, that's right. And I do think it opens a conversation. I think it's a conversation that almost every American can get behind. So that's awesome. Like, that's awesome that there's no philosophical problem. I just think it's not addressing the biggest part of the issue.
Yeah.
I really think that this policy is actually advocating for pharmaceutical companies saying, other countries, developed countries, you can't price control in your countries anymore. It's not acceptable. You can't do it.
But that's about all it's doing. It's just saying
that.
Yeah.
But if it changes it, because what I've heard
won't
is
change it because I'm a pharmaceutical company and I'm going to go.
But what if the United
gotcha.
States
I'm
does
with
what
ya.
we're saying, and they're like, well, it says that we're going to pay the amount that UK pays.
There's
don't know
no
that
economic
I don't know
incentive.
Pfizer can afford that.
There are
And
no
that's,
sticks.
That's where
Yeah.
if it dries up, the countries are going to have to react if they want the supply of drugs that they're used to.
Yeah, I think Congress will have to step in if you want to see change. And I think there are a lot of reasons to have change. My parents lived in Belgium and the Netherlands for a couple of years, and they realized after living there and coming back to the U.S., my dad's a type 1 diabetic, that it was actually cheaper for them after they moved back to the U.S. if they wanted to fly every few months. No, just to go on vacation. Like fly yourself to Europe, have a good couple weeks, bring yourself back. You can't bring back a year's worth. It has to be refrigerated. It doesn't last long. So you could fly there, have a vacation, bring back your 3 months worth, and keep going back, and it would be cheaper to go on vacation and do that than actually buy the insulin here in the
Trump
U.S.
said something really key, and if he could follow up on it, and he said, the number one reason is the lobby. The lobby of the farm. So if we could actually have lobbyist reform, and we could actually have some sticks, and in our law here, yes, it would change. The Declaration is valuable because I believe declaring matters, but it just has no teeth.
Yeah, and the lobbyists love Republicans and Democrats alike. They don't care who you are; they'll give you money.
Equal opportunity.
And look, I resist the demonization of lobbyists and things. I think everything's an information game, but I will say this. And I've read this statistic that the pharmaceutical lobby, in terms of their collective dollars of contributions and what they spend and how many they have, is 3 times higher than the number 2 next sector of lobbyists. 3 times higher. And I will tell you that you got to be on the side. I will never get my head around 74% of the revenue that pharmaceutical companies are receiving are coming from 4% of the world's population. We have burdened this country with far more than we ever should have allowed. And it's easy to say in hindsight, but that's why I like what he's doing. And I don't want these countries to have their price controls. And if they want them, and we are going to buy in bulk, Medicaid, Medicare, all of that, if we won't pay as much, something's got to give.
You know what you're doing right now? Feeling the burn.
Feeling the burn.
You know what? It hasn't escaped. My only justification is, well, he could never do it. Trump's actually get something done.
All right,
that's what's going to happen.
We'll see if they can work together. We've burned out this candle. We're out of time. I do want to mention really quickly before we get done that the U.S. Supreme Court meeting for oral arguments today, they were discussing birthright citizenship, and we probably will get an answer from them in the next couple of weeks. Maura, they're talking about an issue that's been long-standing, whether you want to call it law, tradition, in the Constitution. Do you believe that the Trump administration has any chance on this, or is this just a fight that's not going to
it sounds like we're going to hear late June, early July, so we'll have a chance to talk about it again. As with most Supreme Court issues, the court needs to decide whether they're opining on process or subject. And the process part is, can district courts put in nationwide injunctions, right? And that's what the Trump attorneys are really focused on is this process question. All of the lower courts have ruled against the substance of it. So it'll be about how narrowly they decide to rule, what they decide to rule on. And you do see 6 levels of judicial inquiry and courts coming into this, in which the Trump administration has lost them all. But if you listened to the conversation, it was hard to tell where people were. It was not there was not a winner from listening to oral arguments. So it'll be an interesting thing. But there are, as with many Supreme Court cases, it's almost about what they decide to decide as much as the bigger political
issues. Both sides were asking good questions in court today.
Yeah.
So we were handicapping this yesterday on the radio show that I do, and we thought with our guests that we invited on the show, legal scholars, whatever, that you would see this really. You'd see almost a strong consensus on jurisdiction and overreach by judges that have national, the ability to place an injunction nationally. That this would be. There's been 40 now, I think, that since Trump's been elected, and there would be this desire to pull that back. That's way more than what has happened in the past or should be happening on the issue of natural born citizenship. That would be either neutral or maybe negative. So there was going to be one that was kind of the tea leaves would say they're going to do something to keep these judges from these national injunctions out that are impacting outside their own jurisdiction, but on the citizen issue, that you may see the tea leaves go the other way. Jonathan Turley, who's a legal scholar, and he watched it. He said a lot of heat, not a lot of light in that hearing, meaning he couldn't tell. He really couldn't tell you how any of it's going to go. And there are some people after watching all of this that think that the Supreme Court could even punt and say, we'll take up the issue of jurisdiction when the case that's not about citizenship, but it's really about this national injunction. We'll take it up later. So there are like about 6 or 7 different ways the Supreme Court could go, of which will be a mixed bag. I don't think anyone the commentary I've heard, nobody knows where they landed or where they're even leaning.
Give us something to look forward to in the summertime.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having a great conversation this week. I'm sure there'll be a ton again next week. Anything that you're looking forward to that we should be thinking about, Maura, or just
I'm looking forward to not being at the Republican convention.
I'm not going either.
You're welcome.
Woo.
I'll be there. I'll let you all know how it's going.
Text us.
I am super excited to see how that turns out. So have fun there. I hope you're done before midnight.
It better
Wear your jammies just in case.
I won't be there.
All right. Good luck to those who are going to the convention. Have a great week, and we'll be back again soon.